Here we go.
Hey, Christian here with cheap beat up Elvis vinyl. I collect Elvis records, don't spend a lot of money on them, and I don't care how beat up they are. The more beat up, better. I mostly collect, well, not mostly, but I'm interested in the records that came out while Elvis was still alive. Not to say that Elvis has left the building, because I know when you feel a cool November breeze or a warm summer day, that's Elvis saying, "Hey, baby." But then again, maybe it's just a cool November breeze and a warm sunny day. You make that call. Let's not go. But anyway. So today we're going to talk about something called Dynaflex, which a lot of the Elvis records were on Dynaflex. It started in late 69. It went to the late 70s, maybe 1980. Here's the first one that I have that was on Dynaflex. Love Letters from Elvis. Now this one came out in May of 71. You notice on the back of it, they proudly displayed that it was Dynaflex. It's a really good album. See, it's Love Letters from Elvis, and then there's a little picture of Elvis like on a postage stamp. So this cover was predicting the future that one day there would be an Elvis stamp. So that the Elvis stamp that came out at the post office, that was the second Elvis stamp. This was the first one. And some good songs on here. Heart of Rome, I really like. This Is Our Dance. But when you hear it, it sounds like something that should have caught on at weddings, and I'm sure that's what they were thinking, but it just didn't. So anyway, Dynaflex. What happened was, the way that they used to do most records was they would have what they call reground records. And they would take records that didn't sell, and that were, because when the records weren't sold, they would be returned to the record company. The record company would cut out the middle where they had the paper label, and then they would throw that away and then take the vinyl, melt it down, and use that to repress, to press new records. So a lot of people said that that led to debris and impurities in the vinyl. It wasn't virgin vinyl. It was recycled vinyl. So some people even said that you could see little pieces sometimes of little remnants of paper, and they would be pops, they would be noisy. So RCA came up with an idea where they would make very thin vinyl, virgin vinyl. They weren't going to use the reground vinyl. Now, there were a few reasons for this. One, oil prices were going up around that time, so they could get a less expensive record, and being that it was lighter, it was cheaper to ship, it was easier to store. They wouldn't, it would cut down on when they would ship the records to a record store. First thing the record store did was open them up and see if there were any that were cracked or broken, and they returned those. Well, they thought it would cut down on the number of cracked and broken records, and it kind of did. So they used it for years, but it was weird. Like, they didn't just switch to all Dynaflex. They would have some records, RCA records. RCA was the only one that did this. Some RCA releases were never on Dynaflex. Some of them were released on Dynaflex and regular reground vinyl. So it was very inconsistent as to what they were doing. Some people loved them and said that they sounded cleaner. Other people said that they lacked bass because they weren't thick enough to get a good sound. The weirdest thing was the way they were. Here's a Dynaflex record, okay? This is the Love Letters from Elvis. See, it says Dynaflex right there on the label. Oh, look at this. You hear that floppiness? So that was the record. Now another thing that supposedly worked against it was people just couldn't get in their minds that it wasn't an inferior product. They just felt like you're holding something that's that wobbly, it can't be a quality product. The thicker records must be better. So they had to kind of fight with that. Here's another one that came out. This one came out in February of 72, okay? Elvis Now. So this is February of 72, and they're still putting Dynaflex on the back. So they're still pushing it. Hey, this is a great thing. Dynaflex, you're going to love it. This was the inner sleeve on that one. You see around that time, what was that, 72? 8 tracks were really big. So here they got Elvis's 8 tracks on the inner sleeve. And here is the Dynaflex of that. That's just weird. So whenever I do this, I show my wife and she's like, you're going to break it. Sweetie. Here's another one right here. This one came out in July of 73. Elvis, they call this one the Fool because Fool is right there. It was really just called Elvis, but people called it the Fool. Now, this one came out in July of 73. So they had started doing it around 69. So this is 4 years in. You notice on the back, they don't put Dynaflex. Was that because people were saying, I don't like the Dynaflex? Now here, and so they figured we won't put the Dynaflex logo on the cover. Here's the record. It's got Dynaflex on it, but you don't know that until you buy it. So maybe, now you see this one is a little thicker, but it still bends. But those other ones are tiny, tiny thin. So I'm wondering if maybe by that time they had decided, I mean, somebody made the decision, let's not put Dynaflex on the back cover anymore. Why would you make that decision if everybody loved it? Now, this was the first one that I had when I was a kid, when it first came out on Dynaflex. Now, when this first came out, right over here, it said Brookville because it was a mail order. Where I lived, the local channel had a 3 o'clock movie, and they would have an Elvis week every year, maybe twice a year, but at first it was once a year. And they would show all Elvis movies. And so that was in 1973. Let's see. Yeah, that was in 73. So Elvis was still alive. They didn't have a Humphrey Bogart week. They didn't have a Audrey Hepburn week. But they had an Elvis week. So he was the king. And they had in the Elvis movies, they would have a commercial where you could buy this record right here. So I ordered it. And when it came in the mail, I remember thinking it was weird. First of all, it's a Dynaflex. It says it on there. I mean, look how thin this thing is. You can bend it. And even the cover. Look at the cover. And the cover is just, I mean, they don't even have the song titles on it. And even as a little kid, I thought, it's kind of weird. Now, here's another copy of this one, of the Elvis one. But this one is on special products. And you notice on the back of this, there's no song labels, song titles, and they certainly don't say Dynaflex on it. But here's the special products blue label. And it says Dynaflex on it. So what we're seeing here is a trend where once they took off Dynaflex off the cover, you didn't see it again. Here's from November 73, Raised on Rock. No Dynaflex listed here. Here's the label with Dynaflex. So you see what kind of happened there. I think I've done a little research on it, and it seems like a lot of people just couldn't get, they just thought thinner was cheaper, and they didn't like the Dynaflex. Some people today still will not buy a Dynaflex record, an old Elvis, a Dynaflex record. Then there are other people that love them. And of course, RCA also had David Bowie. And so I've heard a lot of people say that the David Bowie Ziggy Stardust record on Dynaflex sounds fantastic. I remember having the David Live from the Tower in Philadelphia record, and it was on Dynaflex. Very, very thin. So that's the story of Dynaflex. See if I left anything out here. As far as the thickness of them, of the Dynaflex, they varied. You notice like some of them were really, really thin. Some of them weren't. Some of them were a little bit thicker. But the cool thing is, you know, just bending them, it's just weird, you know. And so if you run across an Elvis Dynaflex, go ahead and pick it up, because it's fun just to flop them, you know, and just have some fun with it. And Ma, where's my glue? Okay, fine.